I attended my sister Lena's gender reveal party on a warm Saturday afternoon, the kind where everyone seemed a little too happy. She pressed an ultrasound photo into my hand, her smile trembling with excitement. "Isn't she beautiful?" she asked, eyes shining. "I'm a radiologist. I've read thousands of scans without thinking." But the moment I looked at that image, my blood ran cold. The shape was wrong. The density was wrong. Everything was wrong. I forced my face to stay still, to not shatter her joy right there in front of everyone. But inside, something terrified had already taken root. Lena had always been the softer one between us. Growing up, she cried at Disney movies and taped glitter stars to her bedroom ceiling. I was the older sister with steady hands, the one who fixed things, bike chains, school projects, broken hearts. Even now, at 39, I was still the one people called when something went wrong. But that afternoon in her backyard filled with pink and blue streamers, I couldn't fix a single thing without destroying her world. Neighbors clustered near the snack table, laughing over plastic cups of sparkling cider. Our parents hovered close to Lena, touching her arm every few seconds, as if pregnancy had turned her into something sacred. Ethan grilled burgers at the edge of the yard, glancing over his shoulder to admire his wife every few minutes. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. "Maeve, take a photo of us," Mom called, waving her phone from across the lawn. I lifted my hand in a small wave but didn't move. My eyes were still on the ultrasound image tucked in my palm. I'd glanced at it once more on instinct, hoping my first impression had been wrong. It wasn't. I felt the familiar pressure settle behind my ribs, the same weight I'd carried delivering bad news to patients for nearly 2 decades. Lena bumped her shoulder against mine. "You're so quiet." "Are you overwhelmed by all this cuteness?" She laughed, gesturing at the decorations, cupcakes with little question marks, a giant balloon tied to a chair, tiny pink and blue socks hung on twine with wooden clips. "Just taking it in," I said. My voice sounded steady, but my skin tingled with unease. I studied her face, glowing with the kind of hope that blinds people. She'd been talking to her baby girl for weeks. She'd painted the nursery. She'd picked out names. If I said anything now in front of 50 people, it would shatter her. I slipped the ultrasound into my pocket and forced myself to blend into the party. I refilled drinks. I smiled when people asked how work was. I listened to one of Lena's friends ramble about gut feelings and pregnancy instincts, while my own instincts screamed louder than the music vibrating through the speakers. But every time I looked at Lena, her hand resting protectively over the curve of her stomach, her head tilted as if listening for something, I felt the ground shift under me. Something was wrong. Horribly, impossibly wrong. I tried to steady my breathing, but years of medical training couldn't silence the instinct screaming inside me. The longer I watched Lena drift from guest to guest, laughing, touching her stomach, accepting every compliment about her glow, the more I felt like I was watching someone sleepwalk toward the edge of a cliff. The music thumped through the backyard. Someone passed out cupcakes. Our dad raised his phone to record everything. All I could see was that scan burned into my mind like an afterimage. Wrong shape, wrong density, a solid mass where fluid and tiny bones should have been. My fingertips were cold. I needed confirmation. I needed quiet. I needed Ethan. He was across the yard, wiping his hands on a towel after turning off the grill. When our eyes met, he smiled at me, a goofy, hopeful grin that made my stomach twist. He thought they were about to find out the gender of their first child. He thought the future was about to drop into his hands like confetti. I moved toward him with purpose, weaving through clusters of guests until I reached the patio. "Ethan," I said quietly, "we need to talk, now." His smile faltered. What did she eat something she shouldn't? Is everything okay? "Not here." I glanced toward the house. "Laundry room. Now." Confusion flickered across his face, but something in my tone must have cut through the noise because he followed without another question. We slipped inside, shutting the door behind us. The thump of music became a distant pulse. "What's going on?" he asked. "Maeve, you're scaring me." I inhaled slowly, choosing my words the way a surgeon chooses instruments. Precise, controlled, mercilessly honest. "That ultrasound image," I said, "it isn't what you think." He frowned. "What do you mean it's the baby? She's been... "It's not a baby," I said, my voice dropping into a whisper. "Ethan, that wasn't a baby." For a second, his face went blank like a screen freezing before a crash. Then the color drained from it all at once. "No," he whispered. "No, that can't. She's been feeling kicks. I know what she thinks she felt. But trust me, I've read thousands of scans. This isn't a pregnancy. It's a mass, and it's serious." He pressed a hand to the washing machine to steady himself. "You're sure, Maeve? Please tell me you're wrong. I wish I were." Outside, the countdown began, 3, 2, the party roaring toward a celebration built on a lie. Inside, Ethan looked at me with terror in his eyes. "What do we do?" The balloon popped. Cheers erupted. His world was already cracking. Mine had shattered hours before. Ethan's breathing turned shallow as the cheers outside swelled. Pink confetti drifted past the laundry room window like drifting petals. I could picture Lena crying happy tears, hugging our parents, believing everything in her life was unfolding exactly the way she dreamed. The thought made my throat tighten. "We can't tell her here," I said softly. "Not in front of everyone, not like this." Ethan dragged both hands over his face. "She's been planning this for months. The nursery, the clothes, everything. How do I tell her any of this?" "You don't," I said. "Not yet. First we get her to the hospital, tonight." He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "Maeve, she won't leave. Not after this. She's going to want to celebrate." "I know." My voice cracked, barely audible. "But whatever's inside her, it shouldn't wait." A knock startled us both. It was Mom. "Are you two hiding from the fun?" she teased through the door. "Lena's cutting the cake soon." Ethan looked at me, panic blooming again. I forced a steady breath, opened the door just enough to smile. "Just grabbing something," I said. "We'll be right out." Mom nodded, oblivious, and floated back toward the noise. Ethan whispered, "What do we tell her?" "Tell her I drank too much," I said. "Tell her you need to drive me somewhere. Anything that buys us time." He nodded slowly, the way someone nods when they're drowning and trying to pretend they aren't. We returned to the yard. Lena rushed toward us, pink confetti tangled in her hair, a soft glow on her face that nearly broke me. "There you are," she said. "Ethan, you missed the photos. Our little girl, I couldn't breathe." Ethan forced a smile. "Sorry, babe. Maeve's not feeling well. I need to take her to get something." Lena's smile faltered. "Now, but the cake. I'll be quick," he promised. "Save me a piece." She pouted but hugged me anyway, pressing her stomach lightly against mine. I felt my chest cave in. That roundness she'd been cradling for months. Not a baby, not a heartbeat, just a silent mass stealing space inside her. "Text me when you're better," she said gently. "I will," I whispered. 10 minutes later, we were pulling out of her driveway. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, knuckles bone white. I called Dr. Harper Lang before we even cleared the neighborhood. "Harper, it's me," I said. "I need you at the hospital. It's urgent. Full diagnostic workup, OB imaging, everything. My sister, something's wrong." Her tone shifted instantly. "Bring her straight in." At the ER entrance, Lena arrived confused but trusting because Ethan had followed my script. Inside the dim ultrasound room, Harper's expression barely flickered before she excused herself to get a second opinion. I knew that look. I'd worn it many times. Then the screen told the truth. A solid ovarian mass, large, unmistakable. Lena stared at it. Where's the heartbeat?" Harper spoke gently. "There is no heartbeat." Ethan collapsed into a chair. Lena covered her mouth, shaking. But I felt her. I felt her move. I stepped closer, voice trembling. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry." Her world didn't crack, it crumbled. Lena didn't scream. She didn't collapse dramatically or lash out. She just folded, like someone had pulled the bones out of her. Harper guided her to the bed while Ethan held her hand, whispering apologies she couldn't hear. I stood near the door, unable to move. I'd spent years delivering terrible news, but nothing prepared me to watch my own sister's heart break in real time. Harper ordered immediate pre-op labs and paged Dr. Rowan Blake, one of the best surgical oncologists in the city. When he arrived, he spoke gently, explaining that the mass needed to be removed as soon as possible. "It's large," he said, "but contained." "That's good. We act fast and we improve her chances." Lena stared blankly at him. It wasn't a baby, she whispered. I talked to her. I read to her. I bought clothes. Ethan's face twisted. I'm so sorry, he said, voice cracking. I didn't know. I should have. No, she said sharply, shaking her head. It's not your fault. Someone told me I was pregnant. Someone let me believe it. Her eyes drifted to me. I expected anger, but there was only confusion, grief, and a terrible kind of trust. You knew at the party, she whispered, a blade to the chest. I suspected, I said carefully. I wasn't certain until now. I didn't want to crush you without proof. Tears pooled again, but she nodded slowly. Thank you for getting me here. Dr. Blake scheduled surgery for dawn. I stayed at the hospital, pacing the hallway while Ethan slept upright in a chair beside Lena. When they wheeled her into the OR at sunrise, she reached for my hand one last time. Don't let them get away with it, she whispered. I won't. I promised. The next 3 hours crawled when Dr. Blake finally stepped out, mask hanging around his neck. I braced myself. She did well, he said. The mass was large, but we removed it cleanly. She'll recover. Relief hit so hard my knees nearly buckled. Ethan cried openly. I didn't. Not yet. 2 days later, pathology confirmed the tumor was benign. Lena would heal physically, but emotionally, that was a different fight. She barely spoke the first week. Dr. Elise Warren, a reproductive trauma therapist, came to the house for sessions. Sometimes Lena listened. Sometimes she stared at the wall. She'd lost something she believed in with every cell of her body, a child she'd named, a future she'd rehearsed. One night while Ethan dozed on the couch, Lena whispered, how many women did they lie to? How many thought they were carrying something real? The question lodged in my chest like shrapnel. I couldn't fix the past, but I could stop the people responsible. I started with the boutique clinic. Lena had visited Nest and Bloom Imaging, a keepsake ultrasound studio tucked between a frozen yogurt shop and a nail salon. Their website bragged about high-definition baby previews and early gender accuracy. No mention of licensed sonographers. No disclaimers about not providing medical diagnoses. Just packages, promotions, and glowing reviews. I dug deeper. Buried among the praise were a few uneasy comments. A mother who'd been told she was having twins, only to learn one twin was an empty sac. A father who'd been promised a healthy baby, then discovered severe abnormalities at a real OB appointment. A woman who'd sworn she heard a heartbeat, only to miscarry weeks later. I contacted these families one by one. Jenna Hale cried as she told me how Nest and Bloom insisted her baby was perfect. Her OB found congenital defects 2 days later. Lauren Perez said they'd promised her a boy. She delivered a girl with a chromosomal disorder they never mentioned. Michael Tan's wife lost her pregnancy after Nest and Bloom missed signs of complications. Amber Wu nearly died when her ectopic pregnancy went undetected. They told me everything looked fine, she said. Fine. I almost bled out in my apartment. Every story hit the same note, false reassurance from untrained operators. I compiled everything, screenshots, testimonies, bills, notes. Then I called Daniel Reeves at the State Medical Board. He listened carefully, then said, "We've been monitoring places like this. If you can gather more documented cases, we can take action." I didn't sleep for 2 days. I interviewed families, collected medical reports, requested permission to share their information. Slowly, a pattern emerged, a map of negligence, lies, and lives shattered. Next, I contacted journalist Talia Grant, known for exposing healthcare fraud. She didn't hesitate. Send me everything, she said. This needs daylight. With evidence in hand, she drafted a segment for the evening news. But before it aired, Daniel arranged a coordinated visit to Nest and Bloom, an official shutdown. I went with them. Candace Doyle, the owner, stood behind the reception counter when we walked in. Pink walls, stuffed animals, fake medical posters. It was a theater of motherhood built on deception. Can I help? Her smile faltered as she saw the badges. Candace Doyle Daniel said firmly, "This facility is operating without the required licensing. You are hereby ordered to cease all services immediately." She stiffened. "This is just a keepsake business. People know it's for fun." "No," I cut in. "My sister believed you. She nearly died because of your fun. And she wasn't the only one." For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. "This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "Your sister must have misunderstood." "She heard a heartbeat," I said coldly. "From a tumor." She went silent. Talia's crew arrived after the premises were secured. They filmed the interior, the evidence, the official documents. Talia interviewed me at the curb. "What do you want viewers to understand?" she asked. "That ultrasound isn't entertainment," I said. "It's medicine. And when untrained people pretend otherwise, people get hurt." The piece aired that night. Shockwaves rippled through the community. More families came forward. Lawsuits followed. Marissa Cole, a sharp, unyielding malpractice attorney, filed a consolidated case representing the victims. The trial took months. I sat behind Lena as she testified, voice trembling but steady. "I loved a baby who never existed," she said, "because someone handed me a picture and told me she was real. That lie changed everything." Candace stared at the table the entire time. At the verdict, the courtroom held its breath. Guilty on all counts. Candace was barred from operating any health-related business and ordered to pay restitution. She left the courtroom in handcuffs. Only then, only when justice had a face and a sentence, did I let myself breathe. Lena reached for my hand. "You kept your promise," she whispered. For the first time in months, she smiled. Lena's recovery wasn't linear. Some mornings she woke up determined to reclaim her life, ready for therapy sessions with Dr. Elise Warren, ready to take a walk or cook something simple. Other days she barely spoke, sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket while the sunlight shifted across the floor. Trauma rearranges people quietly in ways you only notice when the world slows down. Ethan hovered gently, learning when to step in and when to give her space. He was different too. Softer, more protective, less certain of the world's goodness. Sometimes I caught him watching Lena with an expression that was equal parts love and fear, as if he worried she might dissolve if he blinked. I visited often, bringing groceries, helping with small tasks, handling insurance calls, anything that felt too heavy for them. Our parents came by with casseroles and awkward reassurances, still trying to understand how everything they celebrated at that party had been built on deception. Healing wasn't dramatic. It was quiet cups of tea, slow breaths, long silences that didn't demand answers. Months passed. One evening, Lena called and asked me to come over. Her voice held something I hadn't heard in a long time, steadiness. When I arrived, the house looked different, softer, warmer. Ethan opened the door with red eyes but a smile. "In the living room," he said. I stepped inside and froze. Lena was on the couch, cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in a pale yellow blanket. The baby's dark eyes blinked up at the room like she was still deciding whether she belonged here. "This," Lena whispered, "is Sophie. We finalized the adoption this morning." Emotion surged through me so fast it left me breathless. Lena's smile trembled not from pain this time, but from something gentler. "I didn't think I could love again," she said. "Not after everything. But the moment I held her, I knew. She's ours. She was always supposed to be ours." I sat beside her, touching Sophie's small hand. It curled around my finger, impossibly light and real. Lena leaned her head on my shoulder. "You saved my life, Maeve. All of this. It's because you chose the truth." The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner and the tiny breaths of the baby sleeping against her chest. And in that stillness, for the first time since the party, I felt peace settle in my bones. Sitting there with Lena and Sophie, I realized the truth hadn't ruined us. It had saved us. Lies would have taken her life stolen, her future shattered every moment that was meant to come. But choosing to face what was real, however brutal, made room for something honest and hopeful to grow. Families aren't defined by perfect moments. They're defined by the ones we survive together. If this story stayed with you, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more real stories of justice, healing, and family, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next one.